Hey everyone, welcome to the new episode of this podcast. Today, my guest is Eric Harrison. He's a founder at Thrive. He's also a startup and small business coach and bootstrapping advocate. Eric, why don't you go from here? Maybe you tell a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, Danny, thanks so much for having me on here today. Yeah, my name's Eric Harrison. I'm the founder of Thrive. We're currently the only community that's built for bootstrappers. So we're an online kind of Slack community made up of strictly bootstrapped startup or small business founders, and built the community kind of based on my experience building my first company because I tried to get that level of support and it didn't exist. So fired up to keep helping some bootstrap founders beat the odds.
Yeah, cool. I'd like to learn more about your community, but before we go to that, let's start with your story. How did you become an entrepreneur? Was it in high school? Was it before that? Was it after that? So, how did that path look like for you?
Yeah, great question. I have a pretty interesting journey of entrepreneurship. I um, didn't, particularly, I don't know if there was like one moment I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I knew I wanted to do my own thing at least. Coming out of college, a few of my buddies and I started a company called Census. Census, we really built mission obsessed teams for small businesses was kind of our main objective, main mission. And that experience taught me a lot. We ran that business for just under or just over 3 years, sorry. And yeah, it was a very interesting journey. A lot of ups and downs. I felt like we bootstrapped that ourselves, and basically had no money coming out of college. So landing a client and running the business off of revenue was the only way to grow. I felt like we had to do everything the hard way. I had to learn the tough way how to sell to prospects, how to bring products to market and find a fit. Um, how to let go of low performers, how to manage cash, like all those things that were really tough to figure out without a mentor. We were fortunate enough to be able to scale that company into about a six-figure, seven-person business at its peak, and ultimately just scaled the business way too fast. Didn't have any experience on our team, got our way out in front of our skis, and unfortunately, we're not successful in that venture. So coming out of that journey, we all decided to go work for startups and small businesses, and I kind of became the head of sales for a while at a startup company, and I felt like taught me everything that I needed to learn. That I knew I messed up in that first company about, like bringing products to market and being successful in it, and knowing the right way to scale and how to manage money, in a way that's going to be sustainable long term. So I'm really grateful for that journey, and I kind of stumbled upon Thrive by accident a little bit. I didn't intend for it to actually be a company, funny enough. I spent forever, I feel like, in my first business trying to find a mentor or a community like this, and like it just didn't exist. Everybody that I spoke with wanted to give me more money in exchange for equity, and my kind of comeback was, I don't actually need money. Like, we know how to sell. I have no idea what I'm doing, like building this business. I just need some help. So I started a community with about 50 folks at the beginning, and just kind of naturally watched it grow. And as more people joined, the demands for engagement opportunities became bigger. We started doing masterminds, webinars, and then slowly but surely started getting asked to coach people on sales and growth and profitability. And that's when I realized, like, wow, I think there's real business potential here. So that's a little bit of my background and kind of how I went into Thrive.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. And what did you study in the college?
I studied organizational communication.
Yeah, and was it kind of the reason you studied that because you wanted to be a business owner, maybe, or why did you choose this major?
There, to be honest, like there was no thought in it. I was never great at school. To be honest, I didn't love going to class. I like didn't have some particular light bulb moment where I said like college totally prepared me for entrepreneurship. Running a business, bootstrapping a business to six figures and failed it, taught me more, I think, than I would have learned in college if I paid and went 15 more times. So it's just one
Yeah.
of those things. I knew I wanted to be in sales, marketing, something along those lines, and that was like one of the majors that was available. I had some friends that were in that major, and said, why not? I don't know what I want to do 4 years from now, so we'll try this out.
Yeah, and did you start the first company while you were still in college or after you graduated?
Yeah, I started my junior year of college, late junior year. So we started really kind of getting toward the peak at coming out of my senior year, and kind of right after that is really when we started hiring people. We started landing more clients than we had at the beginning, and realized there was probably something there.
Yeah, and do you want to tell a little bit more about the idea itself, the product that you were building or the service in the first company? How did you guys meet? How did you start it? What were the steps that you took?
Yeah. How we met, all three of my co-founders and I were active in the Boy Scouts of America our whole lives. So we all lived like all across the U.S., but we were all like national youth officers basically in the Boy Scouts of America, a few different years apart, and met that way. And you know, in that experience, like you're traveling around the country giving speeches every weekend, and um, enforcing like local policy to some degree, with all these different kind of chapters and lodges basically that are out there across the US. And it was very entrepreneurial. It like forced us to grow up, I think, at a pretty young age. And I think it helped us realize like, wow, if we built this consulting program within an organization like this, like maybe we could do something similar and make money doing it. And it's one of those things that like when we started, truthfully, like I think we just wanted to run a company. I don't know that we had a real problem that needed solved, but we settled on, we've done a lot of change management, like cultural growth work in the organization. Like, why don't we go to try to do that for companies as well? So we struggled with that for a while. For a while we were kind of like help companies figure out like who they are and who they can become, which means nothing. And we had two clients at the beginning, and we went back to them after our first project, and I'm kind of interviewing the founder, and our team had kind of settled on this. And I said, what if I told you that what we did for you the past 6 months was we built mission obsessed teams? And he's like, that is exactly what you guys did. And it felt good to like get that validation that we got our positioning, our market positioning right. Um, so that was like big part of what we sold is, we would go into these companies. We would do a lot of like interviewing with their employees, surveying with their employees, um, separate conversations with leadership, and we would kind of assess like, did the business have a clear direction, a clear kind of mission? Like, did they have like the right leadership in place, and were those people actually empowering their team? Did folks have personal growth opportunities within the company, and like, was this business like using values to actually hire the right people? So we'd kind of like give them an assessment, a score rather, in these four areas, and then what we would do is go back to the CEO and try to sell them work to address those challenges. So very service heavy, very a lot of on-site work with a lot of those clients, but it was tough, but it was fun stuff when you actually saw like the change come through.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is that you said that you started this company basically after you started college, and you guys were very young probably. How did you manage to get that trust from your clients that you, like young guys from like school, can really help them improve their business?
Pure luck, I think. It's funny looking back. Like, I don't know if I would have hired me in that situation for the same exact reason. How we landed our first client. My friend's dad he founded this real estate home buying company based out of St. Louis, Missouri, and he ran it. I think it started in 2002, and this was like 2019 when we were doing this. So it was a while. He was kind of coming out of the business basically. He had these two guys that came into the company a few years prior that were very much clearly the next people that were going to kind of take it over. And my friend's dad wasn't even the CEO. One of these guys, his name's Lucas. He was like the CEO of the company. So knowing my friend's dad ran a business though with like 30 people in it, I was like, I'm gonna reach out and see what I can do. And I asked him if I could do this analysis for free because we were bringing the product to market. So we did the analysis, and then um, there were clear opportunities to sell them work, which was interesting. So I went back to the founder, and his comeback was like, you got to convince the CEO. And we had basically no money. We had like $1,000 in our bank account, and I was in Philadelphia at the time, and we paid for me to fly to St. Louis basically with like almost all the money we had, so that I could like get in front of this team's leadership board basically and pitch them the project. So it was either like we sold that or we probably weren't going to become a company. And about 2 weeks later, I got a text from the CEO that said, we talked this over, like let's get rolling. And it was pretty cool experience. That's kind of how we landed the first client. I think in terms of trust, like I'm sure the presentation was like fine. I think it wasn't like a crazy amount of money, I don't think, for what they were used to spending on something like this. And I think probably just wanted to see kind of like how we did. I think the opportunities were pretty clear too, and I think the new CEO felt like he had a lot to prove. So I think I was nervous to sell to him since I had no relationship with him, but ended up becoming like probably my biggest advocate ever in that business. So.
Wow, wow, that's really a great story. And can you tell maybe a little bit more about maybe a very specific case? How did you, what exactly did you do for that client? If you can share this information, of course, just to get more context.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So that business is honestly probably my favorite story, just because like the new CEO was, and we ended up doing about 3 projects with them over the course of like 2 years. So they were like a very good client with us, and very good relationship as he kind of like took over and built his own company and had his own vision and things like that. What was interesting is like they're a home buying business basically. So they've got the home seller, actually, like they go and purchase the property from, but they have all these like real estate agents and kind of like what I'll call middlemen, sellers. And one of the things that we really helped their team figure out is to get more specific on getting excited about the problems they solve for customers. Their mission was very vague. It was like to improve the lives of our community, basically. And I, kind of told them like you could say that that's the case for any business, that's kind of like a overall goal for them. And what was interesting is like from the founders' perspective, like their mission needed to be about St. Louis, like it all needed to be about giving back to that community. And I think the new CEO knew that they were going to expand to other areas and wanted to redefine what community meant a little bit. What was cool though is like we interviewed almost every person in this company, and I remember being on site with them like December of that year, and told them like, guys, like here's all the transcripts from these interviews. Everyone on your team, like we interviewed them, asked them like, why do you come to work? What excites you about this? Like no one talked about St. Louis. Like everybody talked about like the lives of the home sellers that you like changed, how you put like people over profit in every situation, how you guys have like lost money on deals just because you were doing right by the person that was selling kind of a distressed property. So we ended up pivoting their mission away from this like impact lives thing that was a little vague to putting relationships at the center of the home selling experience. All of their competitors in the market like sold their value based on like ease and speed, and they didn't really care about that. Like they weren't the cheapest option and they weren't like the fastest either, and we really helped them build this synergy around their team that like every day that they show up and like grind and go to work has to be in service of the home seller. And I think it really did 2 things. It helped get their team more bought in behind the CEO, like fresh vision, fresh mission, and I think it helped align even like aspects of their sales and marketing to really put like the home seller back at the center of everything that the business was doing. So that was cool. I know their like sales improved because of that. I think the team just ended up being like really engaged in it. They're one of those companies where like they put the mission and vision and values on the wall. So I have some pictures of it every time I'm in St. Louis. I go see those guys. So yeah, that was a cool story for me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So basically, what you did is you helped them refine their mission, their values. But at the same time, it seems like you also improved their value proposition because it became more clear why they're doing what you're doing, and it helped them differentiate them from the competitors, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think as we drove deeper into that business, we realized that more of the problem that we solved for stemmed from this idea that like your business will lose revenue opportunities if people aren't engaged and in the right direction. And I think something that their CEO told me, which is cool, is like, yes, like their team is more inspired because of that experience, but their sales team in particular like sells the mission more clearly. So, I think we started to realize like not only is there this big motivational like feel good aspect to building a mission obsessed team, but like the people that are accountable for growing the company like are much more on the same page about what they actually need to sell, which is like the mission and the problem they solve for customers.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Yeah, so it's pretty clear what you guys did, but it's also interesting for me the dynamics inside the team. So you mentioned that you flew to St. Louis, you met this client on site, you basically interviewed most of their company. Um, how did you guys work between yourselves inside your team? So you basically flew back and then you kind of brainstormed ideas, or like who was responsible for what? Like maybe high level if you don't want to share everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I had it was myself and three other co-founders that um kind of roles that we picked out among the team. I was basically the CEO of the company and kind of oversaw our relationships with clients. I would say I was probably head of like customer experience, if anything, beyond just like leading the business. One of my other co-founders handled like all of our financials and operations, basically, and also helped team lead projects when we needed him to. Another one who's a bit older than us did a lot of like training and development. He had a lot more experience than us at like cultural transformation firms. He's about 10 years older than us. So was a good person, I thought, to like have credibility so people didn't see us as like a bunch of 20-year-olds. And then the other one was like an excellent public speaker, hadn't had a sales role before, but like we put him in like our kind of like driver's seat of like, if we have an opportunity to like sell, we want this guy in the room and helping us like drive that forward. So that was kind of like the split amongst us. And then we had people that came in strictly on like contract work for quite a while that, like I went to college with, or like I met through some experience. And, my pitch to them was like, we'll pay you for this for the amount of maybe like 10 hours a week is what we'd ask you to work while you're not in school or at night, whenever you have the ability to do that. And, if you enjoy the work, post graduation, or if you want a job, like happy to explore that opportunity. And for a small handful of them, like we ended up doing that. We also kept a lot of them just on contract because they were in school still or had another job opportunity and wanted to stick with that, or whatever the case may be. But that was kind of the split amongst the four of us, which had its pros and cons.
Yeah, and what about the cons? What were the negatives about the split?
Yeah, I think one, and I always I'm currently writing a playbook right now for bootstrappers, and one of the chapters of that is entitled "If you're the founder, you have to be the head of sales." And I think I realized pretty quickly that outsourcing that even to like one of my co-founders wasn't the right move. It was like my vision, like I was the one that had the idea for the company. I a lot of times was like the one in front of customers. Like I needed to be the one that sold that, and we made that switch way too late. The guy that we had doing that, like was loved actually being in front of like people. He probably looks up to like Simon Sinek a lot, so like love being in front of people. He'd love to be like the guy that coaches our own team, which is like the role we ended up moving him into, but a little too late. I would say that was like a pretty big con for us. And I would say just like the lack of experience, right? I think a lot of times we spent money on things we probably like didn't need to spend money on. We made delayed decisions, I think, because like there was no one that had been in like our shoes before, like giving us advice. So I would say the sales one was probably like a big mistake that we made amongst the four of us, and just spending time on the four of us on activities or things that like truly didn't bring revenue back into the business, I think was something that hurt us a lot.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, makes sense. I've heard this thing that you talked about CEO being the head of sales. Do you think that obviously you have to, if you're a CEO, you have to know how to sell, you have to lead that path. But do you think that at some point when maybe you figured out your business, when you have to scale, you will need to outsource this role? When does that happening, or is it like a permanent thing that you should bring with you as company grows?
Great question. I think it's a little dependent company to company, industry, like B2B, B2C, but my loose opinion is probably like until you hit about 1 million in revenue, like the CEO needs to be in the driver's seat, or the founder needs to be in the driver's seat of the one selling. Not to say they shouldn't have like SDRs or like reps or account executives under them, because I think like you need that stuff to scale. But I think hitting 1 million in revenue is like a very validating point that like this is a business that you can then turn into 10 million. And I think I always tell folks, like, even if you don't have a sales background, if you've like never marketed before, like, do not underestimate how much people will buy your product because they believe in your story and your vision. I think that's like just such a critical part of that. I think when, particularly like in our case, I did the work on these first two projects, right? So like I sold it, I did the work, like I'm the one that saw the challenges with the client. I know why they hired us. I know what problem we solved for them. I know how much money we made those companies. So I think then when I have a conversation with somebody else and say, go sell that transformation, it's really tough for them. Like they weren't in it, they don't get it. It's not, as you know, not the same reading it in a case study as it was hearing the thing and being in the room with these guys full time. So I think it just takes a lot of client examples. Like you work out the kinks in the business, like you're gonna have so many problems when you come to market and sell that you're gonna have to work through and overcome. And I think if you can get to 1 million on your own, not on your own, but like if you can get to 1 million kind of driving the sales and probably being the one that closes some of these big accounts that the company is kind of going after, I think it then becomes very easy to teach somebody else how to take your company to 10 million.
Yeah, and you also mentioned that you guys probably spend the money sometimes on the wrong things. Maybe you have any like examples that come to mind what not to do in your shoes in the past.
Yeah, yeah, great question. The things that we spent money on, truthfully, that I regret were like wasted time. It wasn't like a physical product. There was nothing we like purchased that I think was like a dumb buy. Like most of the things we physical products we bought money on, like we needed to run the company, whether that was like platforms or like email platforms, like Monday.com, we like paid a subscription for, and it was very useful for us. And I would do it again if I had to. But we spent basically like our team beyond just like doing the client work every day. Our team met for 1 hour on Mondays, I believe, and 90 minutes on Wednesdays every single week for 3 years, basically. And every one of those Wednesdays almost was spent on like fully training our team, like on some skill set. And like truthfully, like we shouldn't have done that. Like there were weeks where we hadn't sold anything in 2 months, and we were talking about how to train on some niche skill, or there were weeks where we hadn't sold in a couple months and we're talking about like what our long-term vision is. And I think I wish I had someone who would have like taken me with a different perspective and said, if you don't sell something, like there is no vision because you're not going to have a company, and the clock's like ticking in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
I think I would try to find ways to get my team motivated, when in reality, like winning business and putting more work in front of them that they were excited about, clients that were excited about, like what's the best way to do that. So I think we just wasted time on things that didn't bring money back into the company was probably our biggest thing. We did pay for we did 3 on-sites over the course of those few years with our team that were probably the most expensive things we bought. It's like 3 days, like you're in an Airbnb or a hotel, and meals for all those people and flights for all those, and we dropped a chunk of change on all those. I would do that again if I had to. Like those 3 weekends getting our team together, I thought made our business way stronger, helped us grow, help us become more mission obsessed. And that is something like I think that in personal alignment I would spend money on even if I was down to my last $2,000.
And when did you realize that it was wrong to basically do all those processes? Was it when you still were running the company, or is it like a retrospective that you understand now, looking back?
I think I have more clarity in retrospect, but there was a point I realized, I think our final year we ran out of cash or came close to running out of cash basically at the end of that year. September, October, when I was getting like pretty anxious about like I need to sell something, or I need to sell actually a lot to sustain like the amount of employees that we had. Um, is when I was realizing like, I think that last like 60 days, we changed those conversations, but the same way that like moving me into the head of sales role with 120 days of runway left didn't really set us up for success. Like changing what we talked about 60 days before you were going to go out of cash, like didn't move the needle for us either. So I think it was one of those things I was realizing live when it was too late, but absolutely in retrospect, I think there were a lot of moments where if I made a small pivot, like we probably like potentially still be running that company. But I'm grateful that I'm running Thrive instead now.
Yeah, very curious to hear about that. But still, it's very interesting to learn how did you grow this company in the first place. And obviously, maybe some of that growth was not really beneficial in the long term. And maybe you can also tell a bit about that.
Yeah, our first like two or three clients came via relationship. Like, that real estate company, I that did not know the CEO. He didn't, he wasn't doing that to help me out or something. He had no idea who I was. But if my friend's dad wasn't the founder of the company, I would have never gotten in front of that board. One of our other like first clients was like a big cycling club, based out of Naples, Florida, and my friend Brian introduced me to the guy that was president of the club. The president of the club ultimately made the decision to hire us, but like without Brian, like I wouldn't. So first three were like very relationship, and then when I realized that we built mission obsessed teams is when we started investing in outreach tools, in honing our elevator pitch and building a sales process. And I think struggled for a while though to figure out like who was the right fit of company to go after. The cycling club had like 50 people in it. The real estate company had 30 people in it. One of our other clients had 100 people in it. Another one had 4 people in it. Like, we just didn't know for a really long time like who is our true market. It wasn't until almost the end that we realized like startups and small businesses that are bootstrapping in particular were companies who needed mission obsessed teams the most. Like those are the people that need to be bought in of like bringing revenue, people that looked like us basically, into the company. So yeah, I think we truthfully didn't have like product market fit. I think like we had a good offering, and I think did well with the like clients that we had, but I think didn't know how to sell to the startup market yet. Like our product wasn't fully like built for them, wasn't priced for them certainly, and I think just ran out of time a bit there. So basically we had people on payroll that were just burning cash because we weren't bringing in money back into the company.
Yeah, and you were bootstrapping. You took no outside investment whatsoever.
Correct. Yep. Four of us each put our own money basically into it from the start. And like I said, if I didn't close that first deal, we wouldn't have had any money at all. So
Yeah, yeah. So basically, is it correct if I'd say that lack of new clients was the main reason why the company didn't survive?
yeah, I mean, ultimately, like we ran out of cash was like what caused us to fail. But yeah, there were a lot of reasons, but it all kind of like stemmed from us running out of cash. I always tell people, when they're like, "Why did the business go under?" Like running out of cash was like the result of us not knowing what we were doing. There were probably 50 points that if I had a good mentor, I'm confident they would have told me to make a different decision. That like maybe some of them were still wrong, but would have definitely impacted the likelihood that we were successful. Even I'm grateful we hired people. Like it was cool that we were able to do that for folks, and like I love having them on our team. But if I was advising myself 3 years ago, I would have told myself like, don't make a full-time hire until you've achieved product market fit. Like you're gonna do exactly what you did, which is burn money on something that you're not sure works. So yeah, I think the real problem was like we just didn't have the experience to know what we were doing yet. Result was we ran out of cash.
Hmm. Yeah, and it seems from all that that lack of mentorship or advisors who would have helped at the time was also a reason why you didn't make the right decisions.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, every decision, whether it was like we gotta lay off this person, or like we need to let this person go, or we should fire this client because like they're not a good fit for us, or should buy this tool. Like it's all gut, like none of us had ever worked, none of us had really ever had another job, basically, and I'd never had a sales role before. No one had ever built product. Like we had never managed cash in a big company. So um, it was all just kind of like what was our gut feel on that. And I think if all of us had to go back now, having worked at startups and small businesses for a few years, I think we'd all have a much different perspective on that. But I think so much of it was pure just lack of experience. And I learned to not underestimate, like, even if people have failed, if they've been in your shoes, like, use those folks for advice.
Yeah. And at some point you run out of cash, your company, you have to close it. And what was that like? What did you feel? Was it hard to kind of let go of this business and try to start something new, or was it kind of simpler, or how did you live through that?
Yeah, the short answer is it sucked, right? I was gutted when we had to do that, like for 2 and 3/4 years. Like that business was pretty much like my identity. Stressed me out a lot, made me very anxious. It wasn't very fun sometimes, but like it is what I committed myself to doing. So, unfortunately, as the founder, like you got to sign up to be accountable when things go well, and you got to sign up to be accountable when things go bad. I remember the day we told our team, like I mean, they knew it was coming. They weren't stupid, but telling them like this is the end of this journey, and yeah, it sucked. I think um, I took 2 weeks to really just like reflect and moped around a little bit, and I didn't do a lot. And then like I said, we all went and worked for companies for the next few years. Like it, um, I didn't like get over it per se, but like it was cool to not have that same pressure for a little bit of like being accountable for people and having the entirety of a business's success on your shoulders and not knowing how you're going to pay people in the next 30 days, every 30 days. It was just like a cool journey to work somewhere and get mentored, truthfully, for 2 or 3 years. I think we all knew there was so much more that we still had to learn, and it didn't deter me from wanting to be an entrepreneur. Like I think if somebody would have asked me a year into working at the startup company that I worked at, like, are you going to do this again? Like I would have told you, yeah, like I will do something again one day. I didn't know it would be Thrive. I didn't know when it would be. But yeah, it was a crummy experience, but I don't know that I would like change what I did because it taught me almost everything. And I think like I'm much happier in this company than I was in my first one because I think I was my customer in this business. I found a real problem needs solved. I'm having so much more like fun doing it. So it may sound odd to say like I'm grateful that I built 6-figure business and lost it all, but I think, like I said at the beginning, it taught me more than anything I could have learned in school or some other experience ever did.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And you said that after that you go work for company basically as an employee, and at some point you decide to start Thrive, which wasn't really a idea of starting a company at the start, but it kind of grew from there. So what's the story there? How did you start it, and where you're now?
Yeah, like I said, I was working at this company. I had been there just about 2 years at the time, and was knowing that within the next kind of 9 months to a year that I wanted to potentially get back into entrepreneurship eventually, or kind of look for that next opportunity. And like I said, I tried to find a community like this building my first company. Like it just didn't exist. It didn't exist in a fashion that was at least helpful to us. And I started asking my old co-founders and clients of my first business and small businesses that I knew, like if there were a community of people that had been in your shoes that could offer mentorship for free in some cases, like would that be enticing to you? And the answer was almost unanimously yes. And eventually I took kind of like pre-sign-ups basically and got to 50 like within a couple weeks. And I just started it on Slack. And like I said, I didn't have a real expectation, like, but slowly but surely, like, started pretty frequently driving conversations in that channel, in that community, about winning, about growth, about sales and marketing and challenges folks have. And it became fun. Like I enjoyed reading people's stories and messages pretty frequently. And um, as we grew, people started asking us, like, do you guys do webinars? Do you do masterminds, anything like that? And I thought, like, oh, this actually be kind of neat. So we started doing those kind of monthly, and slowly but surely, people were like, I need more help that I'm willing to pay for, that is more hands-on, and I need someone who's like willing to either get in the trenches and build this with me, or coach me on how to do that. And um, I knew that that's something that we'd have to charge people for, but I thought if there are people that want to pay for that, I know we're qualified to help in a lot of different ways. And if I'm not qualified to help, I know that there's people in this community that are, that we can kind of connect them with. And we brought an offering to market, and it's just kind of grown from there, and been really cool. So I went full time into the company about a month ago, actually. So prepped for that for a long time, built up some money, working with folks in the community, and really, I think, did everything with this one that I didn't do in my first one. Like, was my customer in my first business that I am here now, and have a real problem that needs solved. So many of these folks run out of cash in the same way we did because they don't have the mentorship available. to them, and I think built it slower and a smarter way, and really validated it before I even launched the community. I interviewed 63 people that were bootstrap founders just to listen, like learn what they dealt with, and that's when I realized like, wow, all these people are just like me. They just don't know what they're doing, and they don't have anyone who can tell them not even what to do. It's more like where to not step on a landmine in a lot of cases. So,
Yeah, yeah. And I even resonate with you because the reason I started this podcast is a very similar idea of learning from other founders and kind of not making the same mistakes and kind of getting the information that you wouldn't gotten unless you were in this path, but you can make use of someone else's experience. So yeah, if you're a founder, you're bootstrapping, you can go to Thrive. Is it thrive.com?
it's thrivebootstrapped.com.
Thrive.bootstrap.com. The link should be in the description, and it's free to join, right? You can, yeah, Slack community, and a lot of value that you can get from other founders. The basically not stepping into the landmines that Eric might have stepped on when he was running the first company. It's going to be very valuable. So totally recommend joining. Yeah, so you mentioned that you switched to this company full time, and are you a solo founder at the moment, or did you bring
Yep.
some co-founder?
Yep,
Solo founder.
definitely different going from four co-founders to just being on my own in this one. But I just me. I have a lot of friends and family that are very supportive that I talk to. I have a 7-person advisory board that I meet with monthly that gives me excellent advice and helps me you know be accountable and grow in the right ways. So I'm a solo founder, but I actually feel more supported than I did 3 years ago.
Wow, that's great. And at what point did you make a decision to switch to this company full time? Was it just the financial issue, basically when you can pay yourself a salary to basically survive or live a decent life? Or was it any other aspects that you had to consider before switching to the company full time?
Yeah, I think it ultimately came down to I realized, I think through a lot of like retrospect and a lot of um, reflection over the past, 8 or 9 months that I'm not like money motivated as much. Like I think the money is a validation that you're achieving the things that you want to achieve, and it's important. But I think my real motivation is like I want to be in complete control of the life I want to live. Like I don't want to work for somebody else. Like I want to make decisions that I can directly be accountable for and directly impact. And bootstrapping a business, in my opinion, is the best way to actually be able to do that. I'm a big believer that if you actually believe in something, like you have to be all in on it, or it's not going to work. And our business building it over the past 6 months, it got to the point that I could always keep it a free Slack community that I maybe helped 3 or 4 founders in every month and made a little bit of money on the side and help people, or I could build something that I really think allowed bootstrappers from all over the world to build businesses that thrive, and that required me to be in the business full time. I think I believe in this a lot. I think the people in it believe in it a lot, and I think I had enough encouragement from the people in my life that I knew I maybe wasn't ready to be an entrepreneur 4 years ago, but I'm ready now, and I want to make this jump. And first month has been a thrill and been incredible, and I think validated that in a lot of ways. Came with plenty of challenges the past 30 days and wins, and grateful for both. I'm sticking it out for sure.
Yeah, and how many people do you have in the community now?
We just crossed 500 people,
Mm-hmm.
so just over 500.
Mm. Yeah, and what's your like long-term vision for the company? How did you see it maybe in 3 or 5 years from now?
That's a great question. My rough answer is like I don't know fully. I think I'm a little like too early to know what it can be. I think what's interesting, right, is like 4 years ago, if you'd asked me what my long-term vision was, I could have given you a very clear picture, and it looked different every 60 days because our business evolved so much. And I think that will happen with Thrive. And I almost have kind of forced myself. One thing I actually told my advisory board, they asked me for what can they be helpful with in my first 30 days, and I said, these three things I list out to them are what I need to focus on the next 30 days. I said, if I start talking to any of you about my long-term vision, just tell me to get refocused on the things that actually are going to make sure the company's around in 60 days. So I don't know, is the kind of the short answer. Long term, the community, will always be free. I know that for a fact. I think at the very least, people should be able to share ideas and meet one another, and you shouldn't charge money for that, in my opinion. I think we'll continue to roll out offerings to help founders in various ways. We'll probably always have free and paid webinars. We will always have some sort of like paid or free masterminds. I think we will eventually have like courses that people can kind of take on their own timeline, on their own kind of timeline like that. I think we'll always offer some sort of like coaching offering. I could see us doing like in-person events as people become more active from around the country and from around the globe in other areas. So I think ultimately I really want to continue to help bootstrap founders beat the odds. I think we'll always stay true to that in some form or fashion. But I imagine, as I hire people, as we take on new clients, as we develop new offerings, like that vision is going to look a little bit different. But I feel very good about the audience. I feel very good about like the problem that they're facing. So anything we can do to make sure that more founders like me 4 years ago get to run their company 10 years from now the way they want to, like that's what I want to find a way to do.
Yeah, and what about your advisory board? Do they have a small share of your company, or what's the relationship there, if you can share?
Yeah, great question. I actually own 100% of the business, so they did not take in any equity. This is like a misconception I had in my first company, is if people are going to help you, they definitely will only do it for equity. It's funny, these 7 people didn't want anything. I think even if I offered it, we'd still be in the same situation. One of the guys on it was like one of my co-founders, my first business that I trust really well. A couple other folks are people that I've worked with over the years. I have 2 people on it that were like huge mentors of mine in scouting. I had a client for my first business on it who's bootstrapping a small coffee shop actually, but like knows this audience like super well. And then it was really important to me to have a person on there that I had no relationship with, that I did not know at all, because I knew that they would give me some kind of uncanned advice. And this guy was like the head of sales at Square for a while, and then I met him through LinkedIn, I think like a year ago, and we had talked a couple times, and he's bootstrapping a company now, and I knew he'd give me candid advice, and advice that I wouldn't even get from people I was friends with. So I have a very like unorthodox advisory board and team. I think 3 of them run companies. 2 of them are friends of mine, and 2 of them just like I think overall gave me great advice from when I was 16 to 20 years old, at least. And I decided I wanted a mixed bag of people that understood business, people that understood this audience, people who could hold me accountable, and people who could motivate me. I think staying motivated was the big thing for me, as opposed to finding 7 people that had built $10 million companies and exited. I wanted 7 people that I was like inspired to learn from, which was important for me.
Yeah, that's a great story. And it's quite obvious that you are a believer in this bootstrap way of building your business. What about those startups or companies that go the venture route, that fundraise, that attract investors, share their equity with outside people? What's your view on those companies? Do you kind of respect them, but you do not agree with them, or you just personally don't like that way and you just focus on bootstrapping? So, what's your relationship with those kinds of companies?
It's a great question. Yeah, I actually don't have anything against anybody that chooses VC or another investment route and raises money. I probably respect anyone who is willing to build a business more than anybody in the world. Like it takes so much risk and guts and confidence to do that, and no one will think it's a good idea for the most part. Like anybody who's willing to do that, whether they do it with money or not, like props and hats off to them. Like they're a rare breed of person. I think in a lot of companies, like it makes sense. Like I would encourage. I am confident there are people in Thrive right now who will end up raising money because it makes sense for their company, like tech company, there's some software attached to it. They need it to scale, things like that. I mean, there are very successful companies too that bootstrapped up to millions of dollars and then ended up raising a lot of money to kind of get to that next level. So I don't know anything against it. I think it's completely dependent on the company. I don't think, I will personally never raise money. I am more motivated by being in control of my life slash like owning 100% of my business than building $100 million company. That's not like motivating to me and not like something I'm particularly interested in. I think it just depends. If you do want to build $100 million company, if you want to be like the next Microsoft, the next Google, something like that, like you're probably gonna have to raise money, at some point. Like it gets tough to kind of get up to that point on your own. So no, I think it makes sense for a lot of people. I think there's pros and cons to raising capital or not raising capital. I think, my encouragement of this is like there are already just a lot of resources out there for people that are raising money or, investors or um, content, I'll say, that you can kind of get attached to. And there's like a lot more bootstrappers. I think like 96% of the companies in the world or something like that are bootstrapped. So um, I wanted to try to do something that gave those folks the same level of like, here are resources and opportunities for you without having to drop a bunch of money on it. So yeah, I think both routes are acceptable, and both routes have pros and cons, to be honest.
Yeah, but for you, it's all about freedom, about having control over your destiny, over your company, over your life. And do you have any examples of companies that bootstrap their way up to 100 million or even higher, or is it like almost impossible in your opinion?
I don't know the exact number. I don't think it's impossible. I think the right group of people could accomplish anything. I don't know the exact dollar amount. Morning Brew, Alex Lieberman's old company. I don't think he's CEO anymore, but Alex Lieberman's company, they bootstrapped up to a lot, and then he eventually raised money. I don't know the amount, but that was like a big one. Um, Mailchimp, I don't know if they ever raised before they got acquired, but they bootstrapped like up to a ton of money. Um, Qualtrics, it's like another big company. I don't know the exact dollar amount they bootstrapped it to, but like ton of money. Um, our website actually has like a slider of like a bunch of companies that bootstrapped their way to kind of be successful on it. So there are a lot of businesses out there that like when I read that list, I was surprised. Like, whoa, I would have thought they raised money from the get-go. And a lot of these folks that raise money, like I'll even tell like people in Thrive, right? Like if you want to raise a seed round for 2 million or 2.5 million in a couple of years, like the best way to raise money is to prove that you can win business from your customers.
Yep.
So like learning how to do that the hard way is like really, really, it not only like teaches yourself like skills about how to like manage money and grow a business from scratch and things like that, but it looks better to an investor than like any pitch you're going to give. Like this is a successful business with real money attached to it.
Yeah, maybe the last point before we start wrapping things up, about bootstrapping, it just came to my mind because not everyone, even when they're bootstrapping, starts with the same level of network or even finances that they can invest into companies. And one can say that, hey, let me start my first company with fundraising, with investments, let me exit it, and now I have money to bootstrap to kind of go without investors. So, what do you think about that? How important is maybe a starting point for bootstrapping your company?
Great question. I do know folks that have either raised money or not, but they built a business first and sold it, even if it wasn't like life-changing money. It was like money that gave them the ability to start their second company. One of the guys on my advisory board sold his first business when he was I think like 24, 25 years old, something like that. And I think he even said like this wasn't like a Microsoft level acquisition, but like it gave me the money to go out and start this other company that is now like massively successful and taught him a lot. So I don't know that you need particularly something major to start. Um, our four co-founders, I think, put like $2,000 into our business at the very start, which like got us a flight for me to St. Louis and got us some startup costs, like basic subscriptions and stuff like that. Like it wouldn't have kept us running very long, obviously. So, I think you don't need a lot to get started. I even think people that don't try to sell in the beginning will end up being very successful. These 63 people that I interviewed from like February to April of this year, uh, seven of those 63 ended up being my first seven clients. Like, and I like started the community and they asked me like, do you do coaching? Like, I didn't try to sell them anything. Like they came to me via like relationship. So, I think I always encourage folks to like take your time getting started. Like my first company jumped in, immediately started building product, immediately started selling. Like this one, like I had no intention of it being a company. I was trying to build an audience that like looked like me, and it turned into a company because there was need for it. So I even think if you validate and start slow and get feedback before you pour the rocket fuel on and try to grow it, you will find you need a lot less money to get started. You need a lot less like outside intervention, to get started. So I think it all just depends on kind of like what your company needs to grow. But I honestly think getting out in the market and building relationships probably gives you an edge over competitors that a lot of people miss out on.
Yeah, great answer. And yeah, before we finish, maybe the last thing that we didn't talk about, but you want to share with maybe other bootstrappers or folks who just starting their companies, thinking about that, maybe any advice or anything that you want to share with them.
Yeah, great question. My two biggest pieces of advice that I like to give bootstrappers or people that want to start a business are, number one, like relationships over everything. Um, Relationships won me my first few accounts in my first business. They're the things that kept me motivated in times when I like really hated building that first company. Um, they're the things that saved me, I think, in a lot of ways, like in building that business, and they'll always be the thing that's like in your corner at the end of it. Like you're gonna experience some like really hard things. Like building a business will probably be one of the hardest things you've ever done, and for people that are doing that actively, like they know that firsthand. The people that you can call or reach out to when you're frustrated, or the people that you can call when you're excited because you just closed like the biggest deal of your life and you want to tell somebody about it, like the person that picks up the phone and thinks like that's cool, that's the person that you want to like keep in your corner. I think relationships over everything. Like go build new relationships, don't burn existing relationships, like actively keep those things at all costs. The second one I would say is like definitely like experience matters, and surround yourself with people that know what you're going through. um, Join a community, whether it's Thrive or another community. Find a mentor. um, Find people that you can just vent to, right, and like get advice from, and find people who will be candid with you, because they've been in your shoes. Even people that have built wildly successful companies and lost it all or struggled, or people that have worked in startups and small businesses and have that kind of like entrepreneurial atmosphere around them, they learn so much. And that's why I appreciate this podcast, you asking folks to even share like like the horror stories, so to speak, of building a business. Like I think you don't know that until you try it. And I think there is nothing in the world like building a business, highs and lows of it. So find people who know what you're going through, create relationships with them, and keep them in your corner. I think if you can do that, there is very little things that you won't be able to find an answer to, no matter how tough the problem is.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks, Eric, for the conversation, for your time, for a lot of insights, a lot of experience. Glad to have you today. Maybe one day you want to come back. We'll be excited to talk again about your exciting updates in Thrive. So yeah, thanks again, man. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Danny.
Bye bye.